Well, hello everyone, my name is Zachary O'Shea, and this is Box of Teeth. It's time to start on another horror-themed antagonist for Dungeons & Dragons right now. In a Dungeons & Dragons game, most role-playing games really, and even fiction that you write, it's always important to have a nice central antagonist for folks to focus on. In a D&D campaign, that's usually the big bad evil guy or gal. And I want to talk about a new one I'm going to be covering this month, who is the Groom, and he's related back to a previous antagonist we've talked about, which is the Relic. The Groom towers over other men. His frame is well chiseled and his ice blue eyes are framed by curls of ebony hair. Many would liken his body to that of an exquisite marble statue, but in truth, it's all made from enchanted wax that kind of lends it that pale hue. The Groom usually bears a stoic countenance with occasional punctuations of something close to heroic resolve. No heart beats within this fighter's chest, however. Instead, it's a bit of stolen divine fire that has been extinguished and corrupted. Those handsome eyes are actually frozen marbles, and his hair is actually spun silk. His noble mien is as false as it is well sculpted. The Groom wears a fine suit of plate mail with the ease that most wear their clothing. Both it and the longsword he carries always have a little shine of rhyme on them. All in all, his appearance makes women swoon and inspires men to follow this larger-than-life figure, often to their own destruction. The Groom will stop at nothing to track down his creator, the Relic, and destroy her. He realizes he is a thing that should not be and waxes on often about destroying himself, but he will not do this until he finds the Relic and destroys her. The Groom is not the first attempt the Relic ever made to create an artificial family, but he is her biggest success and her greatest failure. Immediately after being made and coming to consciousness, the Groom attacked the Relic, and the two of them had such a titanic battle that it brought an entire derelict keep down on top of them, killing all of the researchers and the like that the Relic had gathered. However, she survived, dug her way out first, and by the time the Groom made his way to the surface, she was long gone. Now he spends every day tracking her down. It doesn't matter how much he has to kill, how much he has to steal, how much he has to blackmail, he will find her and he will destroy her. The Groom's power and nature can be traced back to a critical error on the Relic's part. See, she only had most of, but not all of her creator's notes when she tried to replicate the experiment to make herself a mate and a companion. Thus, she chiseled the runes incorrectly onto the cage that was meant to hold a divine spark. When she pulled it down into what became the Groom's ribcage, it automatically extinguished that spark and birthed its opposite instead. Where the Relic burns hot, the Groom is icy cold. These two golems are both incredibly evil, incredibly powerful forces, hell-bent on destroying one another, and much like the grass when two elephants fight, everyone else around them suffers. This is a really neat way to tie one villain back to another one, and when they clash, there can be a lot of sparks there that can have a lot of fun for your players to interact with as they're maybe taking sides or trying to stop both of them as they realize the game that they're playing. Obviously, the Groom is inspired by Frankenstein, and the Relic was based on the Bride of Frankenstein. She's just the first one and his creator in this point. He covers a couple of different horror subgenres, that being scientific horror, body horror, and cosmic horror. And we'll go over a lot of that as we go through his various minions, which have a slightly different feel to them than the Relic's minions. Can't wait to get into that. But first, we need to get into the Groom statistics for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. The Groom is a challenge rating 13 medium undead who is chaotic evil. He's got a good amount of hit points and a high armor class because he wears plate mail and often fights with a shield. He's got immunity to non-magical weapons and a plethora of condition immunities as well, so he can be pretty hard to tackle all on its own. Ability-wise, he does have cold absorption, so if he would take cold damage, instead of taking it, he heals that many hit points instead. He has an ability called Eclipse, so as a bonus action, he can extinguish any natural light or or light spell within 30 feet. He does have innate spell casting of his own, which is Ice Knife and Chromatic Orb that can only do ice damage. And as a legendary monster, he does have legendary resistance 3 times per day. He's a lot more martial than the Relict is, so his main attacks are a longsword that does extra cold damage, and a shield that he can shield bash with. He does have a recharge ability of Hoarfrost, so he can do damage to people around him, cold damage specifically, and he does Icy Smite, which is basically a Paladin Smite, except it does cold damage. He has that as a reaction that he can do by expending spell slots. Also, as a legendary creature, he does have legendary actions, which the first 2 are pretty basic. He can either cast a spell or make an attack, but he also has Wisp of Oblivion, so he can essentially Misty Step, even though it looks slightly different, but that's basically what it is. I feel that Groom is a fine BBEG to kind of base a campaign around all on his own, but you can always include the Relic for a very interesting dynamic as they go head to head. You can always have him encountered after the Relic, or vice versa. I would love to hear how you would use him in your own campaign down below. Now, you can find the Groom, all of his minions, and hundreds of other horror-themed monsters that are all for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. They're all perfectly free at boxofteeth.blogspot.com. If you're more interested in the non-Dungeons & Dragons role-playing projects that I have, or the horror fiction that I write that includes Grease Paint right here, it's got a killer clown. Book 2 will be out sometime this summer. Stay tuned. You can always go to www.zacharyoshay.com. As always, I appreciate your time and your attention. I know this first video for Antagonist is always a little bit longer. Have a wonderful rest of the week.